Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to this remarkable event, especially because this event will be bringing you the authentic stories by our distinguished speakers. The format will be conducted in a storytelling session and during inspiring individuals and inspiring activists will walk you through their stories of resilience in the face of adversity, where there is no shame, but only triumph. Oh, sorry, I forgot to introduce myself to the ones that weren't part of the previous event. So my name is Ognan Janeski, and for the purposes of this event, I will introduce myself as 35 years old. Uh, yes, with more than 20 years of working experience as a TV host, journalist, and a moderator of more than 400 events, conferences, manifestations, and so on. I also have some other jobs and vocations, but I will leave that for you to search it on LinkedIn. Please do. Okay, let's stick to this one. Those of you attending the previous panel have heard quite a lot. I will share a little piece of a personal story that I said that I will in the previous one, but let me just give you the technical details of tonight's event. Unstoppable storytelling sessions are foreseen to have a group of inspiring individuals who come together to share their life stories, success stories, failures, and lessons learned. The group of invited speakers is diverse in order to allow the audience to connect with each story on a different level. Each of the speakers will have 12 minutes for their storytelling. We've divided the event into two parts because of a break that we will make after the first four storytellers and the Q&A session for them, and because of the moment that some of us
As His Highness Pope Francis declare la vita è l'arte dell'incontro. The life is art of encounter. So, to understand the others, we should understand first ourselves. As also the famous Socrates, as we call in the psychology fields, the father of ethics, say before you understand the others, you should understand who you are to bring the wisdom. So the wisdom starts when we know each other, when we know first ourselves, and after then we build the culture of encounter, not in the religious aspect, but also in our daily life. So for me it was unique, and for my first time, I will speak briefly in 2 moments of my life. What are the 2 most important moments of my life? As you know, the decline of the communists in 90 brings to Albania to manifest all the human rights, the freedom of speech and the freedom of the religion. In my early teens, I remember I was discussing with my sister. I asked her when I was 7 years old, what does it mean the words God? And she said me, don't use this word because it brings people in jail. After the decline of communism, in a random way, I started to find by myself, what is the faith? Why people need to believe? So it was one of the biggest decision in my life to be a practitioner. Even that my father and my mother didn't agree with my decision, they supported me a lot. They support me, and my father is my hero. For every girl, the father is the hero. But my father, with his wisdom, is the biggest hero in my life, in every step, till now. He keeps my child. When I start the career, he promotes me in my academic career. So I feel very empowered to have my parents on my side. The second part of my life, it was when I decided to establish the organization. In 2009, I decided to establish the organization Women's Center for Development and Culture in Albania. It was really very difficult moment. All my family members said to me, you will find a lot of difficulties. You will find a lot of challenges. So please keep yourself in academic career and don't start this path. But I was decided. I wanted to start this organization. My goals was real and was clear because as a representative of a Muslim community, also as a representative of civil society, I wanted to promote women and youth in resilience community, to promote human rights, the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, and to build our society and to have the chance for every kind of human being. So when I started the organization, many times I wanted to give up, but the beauty is that I'm a manager and I was the founder. So I quit the job in the evening, and in the morning I rework myself and go to the work again, despite the challenges. And another push factor was when the concept of violent extremism, it came up. In 2015, more of an organization worked to deal with the phenomenon of violent extremism. I participate in some organization, and I feel that the people do not have the knowledge about the terminology, how to approach the violent extremism. So I started to invest in myself, to participate in a lot of conference, in a lot of training by OSCE as a trainer for life training, as a leader, a women leader, to gain the skills how to prevent the violent extremism. And after then, a turn point in my life, it was when I go to the Morocco, for the first time, the Forum for Women in Security and Leadership. it was the best choice and the best opportunity in my life. It changed my approach about security, not only in PCVE, but also the role of women from around the world who are in the conflict zone. What does it mean, peace? What is the role of women? Are we a peace builders? So this question brings to me how to build a strategy to promote women, despite we are not in conflict zone, Albania, how to promote women, the role of women as activists, gender equality, and all issues about security in different level, to go from the highest hierarchy to the local level, to the root level. I'm used to do a lot of work. I'm a hard worker in the field. But in the stage, sometimes I have a lot of emotion. So maybe I will do some mistakes also, but the point is that when I go to this conference, I met really leadership women with a lot of experience from around the world. But what inspired me, it was their modesty, their humble. They was so modest, and here I bring some of them and what they motivate me. Because in our life, we need to be motivated, We need to be evaluated and to reward it sometimes. Both material, but also in different way. People needed this. It's the psychological need. It's something that brings us to bring the best of ourselves. So here you will find some photos. This is my friends, my dear little friends, Mobina, the Canadian senator. I spoke with her and I get the first interview from her and I asked, what is the key of your success? And she said to me, be prepared. In every meeting that you go, if you ask 10 minutes, get 7 minutes. To let to yourself the open door for the next. And after then, Sanam Anderlini, the CEO of International Organization of Civil Society, ICANN, who said to me, if you want to have a long journey, you must build a trust. People don't need to show themselves by the speech or something else. People first need to build the trust. If you build the trust, you open the door of collaboration and network. And after then, you see Countess Sophie. From a discussion friendly, we told said that you have only 30 seconds to speak with her. But believe me, she speak with me more than 5 minutes. And she stated to me the same word as my father do. If you believe in what you do, and you are a hard worker, you will achieve all the goals. And really, I passed every day, step by step, with a lot of difficulties, but I believe in what I do, and I believe that I bring change to myself, to my family, and to the other members of community. So, as an organization, we are focused on security issues to promote youth around Albania on peace and security agenda. As you can see, during all the year, 2022, we, in our activities, participate more than 1,000 youth by training, peer-to-peer education, how to be promoter as a peace builders, how to understand their role, and how they to promote themselves, not in the local level, but also nationally and abroad. And also, as you know, the 1325, I started to work with 1325 agenda, women, peace and security, in 2060, when still in Albania we don't have action plan, but I started with my strategy to promote the women as peace builders by the campaign She Built Peace and other discussion meeting. So during last year, we we achieved approximately 600 women in different projects during all the years. To promote them as a TOT trainer, to understand what does it mean gender equality, and to have a good approach and a practical approach, not only by the reforms, not only by the action plan, but to understand themselves as a key actors in their municipality and in their work they do. So basically, in the end, I wanted to not take too much time. In the end, I think that leadership cost is not easy. Leadership is not when you come in the level of senior or something else, it means that you do less work. No. For me, maybe you are experts, maybe you are senior, but for me is that the understanding, in my opinion, of leadership is that when you become a senior or something else, you need to do more work and to do harder work to bring the changes in the people's life, especially in the people who are in poverty, with the women who suffer from domestic violence and from all kind of discrimination. Because if you don't keep the hand of the others, in the end you didn't do nothing. What is important is the measurement. What you change in the end. What you bring to their life. You bring smile is something achieved. You bring differences is something achieved. So we need to care what we are doing, how we are doing, and why we are doing, what brings to us and what brings to them. And we must understand, even that we are in diversity, we are in the same boat. We are in the boat of humanity and solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rudina, and I especially like when someone uses the given time frame right. Yeah, so let's continue on. Our next speaker, and her introduction begins like this. She holds an MA degree from the University at Vienna, and she works for a major law firm in Vienna, specializing in labor law. She had to work all the time to support herself in a foreign country while facing hardships, and how she actually managed to have so much experience as a Bosnian girl there, but now also with an Austrian citizenship. Everybody, Selma Lačić.
Good evening, everyone. So as Ognen mentioned, I've been living in Vienna for the past 10.5 years. Originally, I'm from Bosnia and Herzegovina, from a small town called Banovići, very proud of my hometown. In the past years, we all know how many people, especially young people, left the Balkan countries. Definitely a lot of you present here. But what makes my story authentic? It is a story of very hard work. It is a story of courage. It is a story of starting with very little in a country that is not so welcoming to foreigners. It's a country who has very difficult requirements for foreigners, especially when it comes to visa requirements, the work permit, etc. It's a story of women who has a big dream to become an expert in legal field, and it's also a story to be remembered, with a hope to be remembered for something good, as many of you are doing so many great things in the region. Now I'm working for a big law firm, but still I like to think I'm still on a good side. I specialize in labor law, so I'm not doing banking and finance and M&A. I'm still focusing on that person, that employee often we do represent employers, but I must say that in Austria, the labor law really protects employees. So my story started in Banovici. I was always this tall, really always fighting for something, very active in my society, always really trying to do the right thing. I was always in some sort of trouble, always in some sort of discussions, etc. And then I left for the US. I spent the academic year in Chelmsford, Massachusetts, where I received, thanks to the scholarship from Kennedy Lugar Youth Exchange and Study Program, which was a scholarship, which is a program within the US Department of State. And then I came back to Banovici after the year in the US, and I said, there is no way that I'm leaving Banovici again. And here I am. Then I eventually, after some months have passed, I thought, okay, so I always knew what I wanted to do in my life. I was really very fortunate that I always wanted to become a lawyer, to practice law. When I was 9-year-old, I was constantly looking on TV. I was looking at the war crimes and genocide trials at the International Criminal Court for former Yugoslavia. And I like to tell the story because my dad is so proud of that. I said, I want to become that Judge May. He was one of the judges that was on the bench at that time. Well, life has shifted me in another direction, but still there is that really passion that I still carry on after so many years to practice law, and I really love everything about it, and I love every single paragraph, as we say in Vienna, so it's a section of every single act, and I'm really, really passionate about it. So I looked at the opportunities that I would have in Bosnia. As I was a valedictorian at my class, I was rewarded some scholarship at really great universities in Bosnia. But then, if you ask me now, why did you go? I cannot tell you that I thought that I will not have decent, good life in my home country. It was really that inner voice that was telling me, no, go, do it. And then my dad, he said, okay, why don't you look up at Vienna, at the University of Vienna? It is the most livable city in the world, etc. But I knew that my family cannot support it financially. So I knew that I will need to work during the whole course of my studies to support myself. And I also would need to study in German, language that I didn't know at the time, and I did not think it through, because in order to study German and to study law and later practice law, you really need to know German. So it's all, let's not get into details, but you really need to know the language. Okay, I said, I'll do it. And I went to Vienna, and my first job was at McDonald's. They fired me at McDonald's after a year and a half. Then I started as a cashier at a big supermarket. I loved it. I was the youngest there. I stayed there for 2 or 3 years. I was babysitter all the time. I loved it. It's something that I miss from my time as a student. And then, thanks to my own initiatives, I started, because I really strongly believed that I can do that. I started applying for jobs looking for a professional, and I looked for a professional experience. So I then did internships. I worked for law firms and for big companies, real estate company, etc. And also did an internship at the Bosnian embassy in Vienna. And how I got there, I didn't think I'll say the story. I just went to the embassy, to the front office, and said, hey, I want to do an internship here. What should I do? How can I apply? And the guy looked at me like that. He's like, give me a passport. Like, at that time, I was Bosnian. And and then he said that I need to mail, so per post, to send the application. That's what I did it, and I had the greatest experience there. And then eventually I did graduate from the University of Vienna, and then I worked for a smaller law firm, then worked for Austrian Federal Railways, and there I started specializing in labor law. And at that time I'd been in Vienna for 8 years or so. I've been discriminated so many times. And I knew that I was Bosnian citizen at that time. And I knew, okay, I cannot do it like this anymore, because if you don't have EU citizenship and you want to work as a lawyer or even a legal counsel, you need to have EU citizenship. And in my case, it was Austrian citizenship. And friends loved to tease me about it, liked to remember me out of it. I always used to say, I cannot understand how people can give up their own the citizenships of the countries they were born. Like, how can you do it? It's part of you. It is part of your identity. And I think it was because of my integration into society at that time that I had a good work colleagues. I had good friends who were Austrians, etc. And I decided to apply for Austrian citizenship. And it took me a year to become Austrian. And it was one of those moments that changed my life. And I'm getting really emotional when I talk about it, as you probably can hear in my voice. A friend of mine, he went to the ministry in Bosnia and did it for me, and then he sent me the message saying, "Oh, Selma, from this point on, you're no longer Bosnian." And believe me, that is something that you remember. Not because only for the reason that I'm no longer citizen of Bosnia and Herzegovina. It also, which was a significant part of my application for Austrian citizenship, was that I was becoming an Austrian. I was becoming part of that country. Because people used to tell me, it's just on paper. No, it's not just on paper. I am now part of that society. I was born in Bosnia, but I am getting a passport of the Republic of Austria. And what made it really easier was that at that time, my boss and my work colleagues at the company where I worked were so happy that I was becoming Austrian. So I thought, people like it. People see me as part of this society, and I belong here. I don't know if I will spend my whole life in Vienna, Austria, or anywhere, I don't know where, as none of us knows. But I am part of that society now. I can vote, and it did bring a lot of security. I did feel more secure, because now I know I can do whatever I want, wherever I want. I can work where I want to. They cannot ask me if you have, which citizenship do you have, or do you have visa, etc. And that's where life then got me to major law firm, same as Reiher Hovrig Hans, which also has offices around the Balkans, and we will be active when it comes to labor law in your countries, and I will be also one of them who will be actively working and supporting when it comes to provisions in labor law. But if I have a minute left, for me, when I think about my journey and the past 10.5 years in Vienna, it is really about people. Because when I moved to Vienna, and I went to the university together with my cousin who I met there, we couldn't find the building where I can go. And just remember, it's 10.5 years ago. At that time, Wi-Fi was very limited, and we didn't have internet on our phones, so Google Maps, forget about it. We couldn't find the building. So the next day I went there and found it myself. And it is about people. It is about gaining trust, as my colleague has just previously said. It is gaining trust of people who will support you in this or that way. I wouldn't be able to stand here before you or have that nice degree and nice job and everything if it weren't people who really trusted me with a lot of money, which they gave me in order to prolong my visa, or my bosses who believed in me and knew that I can actually write and speak German, even though I still have an accent, or now that my boss, they send me to the court and I go and represent my clients before the court, and I can do so many things, but it is really about people, and people really made my journey. Thank you.
Well, you survived the stage as well, so thank you for that. Are you happy? Are you satisfied with yourself? That is the most important thing. Bravo. Good for you. When we're talking about stories like this, and the storytelling is very important for people because we learned from each other as from the beginning of time by stories. People started talking for sharing information and for sharing stories. I mean, they've started because of gossiping, but still. Yeah, if you read the anthropology part, they will tell you about the gossiping, that was the first time when they started sharing stories. And when we are sharing stories, it's also very important to be very personal. And when we're talking about personal things, they're always connected with something that was going on in our life professionally or maybe privately. And when we're talking about the private part, sometimes it intertwines with the professional one. And this is how the next story goes. So on the personal experience, on the 1 year of everything that came upon the Europride, how his government failed him in his biggest achievement, and how that government succumbed to the far right. But from the personal experience in this process, we will hear more from Filip Vulovic.
Thank you, Ognjen. All right, so this story is going to be about a very young, not that young, but an openly gay activist coming from a very small and conservative town in Serbia, who reached one of his biggest achievements, both professionally and personally. But ultimately, his government desperately failed him, and the government was there to protect his rights. That young man is me, and that achievement is being part of the organization of Europride in September in Belgrade. So in 2019, one of my colleagues, who will be speaking later on, had this interesting idea to propose Belgrade to be the host of Europride in 2022. So, everyone was skeptical, and we thought that there was no chance that we are going to get the possibility to organize such a big LGBTI event in Southeast Europe. But we won with a landslide victory by votes from European organizations of prides. So there were 3 years ahead of us to organize the biggest, the most historical LGBTI event in the Balkans and in Southeast Europe. In 2020, COVID hits, and with COVID came the conspiracies. And with the conspiracies, the far right started organizing, not only around anti-vax theories, but also around anti-EU, anti-NATO, and anti-LGBT. And of course, everything that is anti-NATO is good in Serbia. In 2022, Russia attacks Ukraine. The far right start organizing even more around that cause. So the far right starts listening to Putin about his narrative, how the European Union is imposing this dangerous LGBTI ideology towards our kids, and they want to change our Orthodox Christian society. So as the far right starts organizing more and more, we proceed with working as hard as we could to organize the best possible Europride. We planned a 5-kilometer march with many trucks and with thousands and thousands of people from all around Europe and wider to come and support the community in the Balkans. But in August, I was returning from the local beach in Belgrade, from the lake, in a bus, and the bus stops in the middle of the main street. And the driver tells us that the street is blocked, and we need to get out of the bus. So we get out of the bus, and I see thousands of people marching in the main street. On the beginning of that really big march, there are enormous photos of Putin, enormous photos of Chetnik war criminals from the 90s and from World War II, and enormous anti-Europride banners. So they were the most present banners at the protest. There was this really big smoke of incense from the priests, and the worst thing is people with families, children, people you will see in supermarkets or in the park or in your building saying good morning to you. Those people were walking and they were supporting what was said, the hate messages that were said on those banners. And I saw that shocking aberration, and then I thought that things might go down badly. A few weeks later, we start hearing some news from pro-government media that Pride is going to be cancelled. Like, nobody cannot cancel our event. Only we can cancel it as organizers. So we thought of it as fake news or some government pleasing the West. So we decided to, of course, proceed with organizing the event as planned. And at the end of August, I was at my driving class in the car. It was my third lesson, and I was awfully bad, and I was nervous as hell. And I was driving the car on this bridge in Belgrade, 50 kilometers per hour in fourth gear on my third class. So I was super nervous, and I was shaking already. And my driver instructor loved to listen to Radio Belgrade, and Radio Belgrade was on. And on Radio Belgrade, there was this live conference from President Vučić. And it was a conference about Kosovo, and how we will not give up Kosovo, and how we will not accept legal IDs from citizens of Kosovo. And we were listening to the conference. I was driving on the bridge, and all of a sudden the president says, and about that thing, Europride is going to be cancelled. We are cancelling it. And I start hyperventilating. My heart starts racing. My stomach starts turning around, and my legs start shaking. My phone on the back seat starts ringing, and messages and WhatsApp, ping, ping, ping. And I asked the driver, we have to stop. So we stopped at the local gas station. Good thing I finished the bridge. And I started calling my colleagues and texting the WhatsApp groups and said, what are we going to do? And the consensus was, we're going to do nothing. We're going to continue as usual, or we're going to be more persistent as ever before. So we turn our slogan to a new slogan, which is, we will walk. We turn our social media black, and we start sending clear and short messages to the government. We will not give up. We are not afraid, and we will walk no matter what. So the government feels pressure. The government feels that people are not afraid, because we had a couple of bans in 2009, 2011, 12, 13, but the government saw that things are different now. We are not afraid. So, fast forward to Pride Week, and Pride Week is beginning. We are opening the International Human Rights Conference. And the practice at the International Human Rights Conference was to invite the mayor, the prime minister, the important institutions to open it, because at that conference there were many ambassadors, MEPs, deputy prime ministers from all over Europe. So a year before the conference, we invited the institution of the prime minister to come and open the conference. So it's the first day of Pride Week, and at the venue, a policeman shows up, and he's bringing this paper, this document. And he gives us the document, and we look at the document, and it says, Europride is banned because of safety reasons. So the state failed its own constitution and its own queer community by banning free assembly and a protest. And they failed us, and they took the right to free assembly from us. 3 hours later, the prime minister, whose government just banned Europride, decides to show up. She shows up at the conference, and the couple of dozen of activists show up, and they start booing her so hard, and it was so embarrassing because so many really important people from all over the European governments were there, MEPs, Deputy Prime Minister of Belgium, etc. So it was, it showcased the relationship that activists had with the Prime Minister. So that fiasco ended, and Pride Week continued as usual. And under all of that pressure, the government proposes another solution to us, a compromise. The compromise was this: you can have a walk, but it's going to be shortened from 5 kilometers to 500 meters. And it's not going to be called a Pride March. It's going to be called an escort of the participants to the concert. So that's how they presented it. Because then they have the alibi to tell the country, the far right, that no, they didn't allow. We have a document that showcased they didn't allow. So we had a decision. We can either accept that document, or we can not accept it. So the question was, should we accept the document so that the police can protect the activists who will come out nevertheless? They will come out to the street. Or we can not accept the document, and then the activists will come out, and we will come out, and we will undergo the risk of either being beaten up by the hooligans or prosecuted by the police because we are attending an illegal gathering. So ultimately, we accept the document. And we gather on the Saturday. It was raining. It was freezing cold. And we start walking our 500-meter walk or escort to the concert venue, to a stadium. And we passed by this church, which was full of Nazis during that day. And they were ringing the bells so hard. And we were walking through a park without music. So it was just like a walk. And the bells were ringing. And it was raining. So it looked like a funeral and not a pride event. But at the same time, that gathering, they gathered thousands of people against all the chaos and threats and danger, because the city was full of hooligans and full of police barricades. And it gathered thousands of people, young queer people, who wanted to show resilience no matter what, who wanted to bring their banners, who wanted to have their messages heard, seen, and who wanted to feel empowered and who wanted to feel a belonging at that gathering. So we walked, we came to the concert finished, it was raining, it was super cold, everyone left early, we were wet, everyone got sick. I slept for 7 days straight, and after that hibernation and sleep, I posed myself this rhetorical question. Was this a failure, or was it a success? Was it a good decision to accept this document, or was it embarrassing? Did the government succumb to the far right, and did we succumb to the far right by accepting to walk this small walk of 500 meters? And to this day, I have never answered myself that question. Did we win, or did we lose? Yes. So I also want to pose that question to you as well for the Q&A session. From your perspective, is this a victory because we managed to have a small walk, or was it a loss because the walk was short and embarrassing? Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. And you already started talking among yourselves and firing those questions up and comments probably. We'll have that chance when we finish with the fourth speaker for the first part. Afterwards, we will take the break after the Q&A session. So I didn't take my tablet for reading and announcing the next speaker because I don't need it. I don't need anything to read about it and about her. Because if I start explaining who she is, what she has done in her life, and how she has done it, and how come and how many things she achieved, believe me, we will have to be here for an all-nighter. The thing is that sometimes it is not only one story that defines you. It's probably your own personal story that defines the future of a whole country. Your own personal story being part with other stories together, and they began one particular story for one particular country because of the beginning of their independence. So, her stories all together, she said when I asked her, what are you going to talk about? Do you have something in mind? Can you please tell me something so I can announce you? And she said, oh, a little bit different stories here and there. We will connect them with each other. So I said, okay, I'll try to announce you. Edita Tahiri.
Excellent introduction. Thank you, Ognjen. Greetings to all. Well, first to tell you, I never meant to be a leader. I thought I'm going to be psychologist because my father was in the prison as political prisoner. And he came home sick psychologically. Even didn't have lunch with us 10 years. So I thought to become psychologist to understand how the tortures of Serbian regime at the time reflected to his soul or brain. But I couldn't never become psychologist. What I did, I connected to the tragic destiny to my nation, to Kosovo. It was the time when the freedom of Kosovo and Albanians was taken. I decided to help my nation. That came to my mind. First day, I was going to my job, and here, there in the neighborhood, 3 school children coming out from the school, killed in the garden of the school. That was the moment which captured my emotions. That was the day when I took the hand of my nation together to go against occupation and to work for the dream of freedom and independence. That's how I also immediately took actions and became one of the founders of the movement for independence of Kosovo. To tell you, I was only woman among 15 men. Anyway, I must say, I never felt gender discrimination. We were all equal. We were so united against occupation. It was not an issue about gender, but about individuals very strongly tied to each other, to our goal of how to reach it, how to make our dream come true. Not easy. 10 years, long journey, a lot of hardships, a lot of tragedy, a lot of encouragement, bravery. I belong to peaceful movement, but I'm happy that after 8 years we were joined also by armed resistance. So the movement really became our journey. Personally, when going to different meetings to give speeches, to inspire my nation, to empower the movement, to become a model, though never thought I could, but I could inspire people to be courageous and never even accepted any moment of being weak. But I must say that also my nation was very strong, very brave. I was giving speeches through their questions or through their commitment, was becoming even more strong. Never thought of be afraid, and my message is that when your nation is in danger, no space for being afraid. Unfortunately, you just get, you even don't know from where you generate your energy. I cannot explain. It was just coming to me. That's how we moved until the times that we came to the stage that we convinced the international community about peace conference. Let me say, in this leadership role, I was also Minister of Foreign Affairs of occupied country for 10 years. My role was to convince the world about justice, about root causes, providing arguments why Kosovo is entitled legally for independence as one of federal parts of ex-Yugoslavia. So I traveled throughout the world as foreign minister, and another job was, it was our direction as a movement, to create strategic alliance with the United States, and we were very successful. They took our side in terms of justice was in our side, and here we arrived to the Rambouillet Peace Conference, where we had to decide as a peaceful agreement. Being leader is not only leading your nation, it's also taking very difficult decisions, and you are very much afraid. You feel responsible. Whether you are deciding right solution. When we came to the point of deciding for Rambouillet Peace Agreement, two things were important. First, Kosovo be placed under NATO protectorate. Second, the door for independence to be assured by the agreement. When we came to this, say it level, we said yes to the agreement. This was a big achievement because the door for peace was coming. The dream of freedom was coming. We were asked, I would like to share you one of the very difficult questions. General Clark, after Rambouillet, we traveled to Brussels at the headquarters of NATO. General Clark asked as follows, he said, as Serbia failed to sign the peace agreement, we are going to bomb Serbia, but you should know that Serbia will retaliate against your nation. Are you ready for that? I was again the only woman, men were all half peaceful resistance Kosovo Liberation Army delegates. I said, my answer is as follows. Better the ending pain than endless pain. Meaning, it's better to end the Serbian oppression than continue our people to be killed, etc. Second issue, what was important? NATO protectorate was what? We as leadership made sure never again genocide will again to our nation. And that is how, since the time we are liberated in 1999. Finally, to tell you something, what is to be a leader? Is to be able to be model of courage, of inspiration, of wisdom, or good argumentative speeches, etc. But you are not allowed to be emotional. Do you know, after so much killings of my nation, I cried after Kosovo got independent and free. That was most difficult in my life. 10 years, all controlled in my nations and emotions. And finally, to make it a little lighter, diplomacy for the oppressed nations is very difficult because doors are closed for oppressed nations. Oppressors have access to United Nations, but the oppressed side is without voice. And I had, as foreign minister, to fight to open the doors in different ways. Once I ended up in Barcelona. It was the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, and the speaker, or the head, was American Senator Roth. And I lobbied and found a way to meet with him. He was quite an old by age. He had also some advisors. And I entered in the meeting, but he closed the eyes. Then I didn't know what to do now. He's sleeping, what should I do? Oh, advisors, I didn't come to talk to advisors. Okay, I decided to talk like he's looking at me. And I was talking, providing arguments why Kosovo is entitled for self-determination and independence. Continued about the killings, about denial of my Albanians, etc. Finally, at the end, and I was talking how NATO should intervene, finally, he opened the eyes. Look at me. Madame Tahiri, you want NATO and independence? After that, I look at him, I said, you bring us NATO, independence will come for itself. So just to tell you how are these challenges of the people who are unheard voice and who fight for this. And finally, just for tonight, and this now, because I think Ognen put some laptop and says, look at that, and I'm looking. Okay, just to tell something, my experience. I think that you cannot be change maker if you don't change yourself. So I was neither politician nor leader. I was engineer, electronic engineer, but after I changed myself, I did these changes. When we came to the independence and freedom, I didn't stop. Because I got used to resist. After the war, what I did, I ended up a student of Harvard University. I did my master because I said time to transform from someone who resists into someone who makes peace and builds peace. Here I stop. There are so much to tell more, but for tonight, this is my speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, but stay on the stage, because now I will invite Rudina, Selma, and Philip to join us for the Q&A part. And thank you, Edita, for that. We started with peace building, and we ended the first part with peace building. So we started with the new generations of peace builders and keepers, and with the ones with more experience in that matter. Okay, so we have a mic here. Yeah, you will need that mic. Okay, I'll be here because too much cracking on the sound. I'm a little bit fatter than all of you together. So who would like to address a question or maybe even a comment only about one of our speakers, or more than one? Because I believe so that when we started to speak about this, and when we started sharing stories, and we had this meeting yesterday, it was so lovely to see that after the technical part of 5 minutes, because that didn't last it that much, the participants among themselves were sharing stories and learning from each other. So I remember Selma and Belma that you will be seeing after. With Edita shared so many stories and probably inspired each other. So does anyone has any comment? And I will leave you for a break after some questions. You're not going out without questions, believe me. And this doesn't count. Dafina doesn't count, and I'm going in the audience.
Yes, I'm just opening the floor. So thank you very much. It's very inspiring to listen to all of you. I have, I grew up with Mrs. Tahiri's stories, so we worked together before, so I know her stories. And I'm happy that everybody learned, let's say, a small piece of her efforts, what she did. But I have a question for Philip. We didn't know much about you when we decided to get you here. And I'm happy that you're here with us. And do you still have that drive to continue fighting for the rights of the community, and not only your community, communities that we live with us, but human rights in general? Like, do you see yourself giving up, or you still consider fighting for another, maybe not Euro pride, but global pride? Why not?
It's a good question, and for me, I think giving up is not an option. I chose this as a career. I mean, I am an engineer by bachelor's degree, engineer of organizational sciences, but I decided to indulge myself in human rights, not only LGBTI rights, but human rights in general. I work at Civil Rights Defenders. It's an international NGO. But this Europride was a big lesson about how you feel so small when such a big force comes across you like a tank. And I wanted to drive to the president's office that day and scream at him, "Are you insane? What have you done?" And that's a drive. I mean, I want to do more. That was just, a motivation by somehow being at a loss that September. It just pushed me to work harder and to fight more, because the far right is growing and we are really, really seeding in a lot of hatred, and we just need to fight more. Yeah.
Thank you, Philip. Does anyone else? Okay. What are you going to record now? Our next four speakers. Belma, I already announced you, so.
Thank you, everyone, for great stories. I want to ask Selma one question. Being abroad and losing the identity or the passport, and I know how much you still want to bring back to the community. So how do you think being outside of your homeland, what does that mean to you? How can you better influence changes in our region and our countries?
Thank you, Belma. Microphone.
Thank you, Belma, for the question. A simple answer, that's why I'm here. I could have spent those 2 days working or sleeping or working my PhD, etc. I chose to be here because I really need connections in the region. So that's the only way how I can really give back. And I'm really lucky that I specialized in labor law, and as I was discussing with one of you, it is really the first. It's one of the reasons why many young people leave the region, because that legal field is not so developed. There are a lot of violations, and I really hope that with my experience in Austria, that thanks to the connections that I have and will have in the region, that I will maybe somehow implement what I have learned in Austria as one of the leading countries when it comes to the protection of employees' rights, and maybe change something and bring meaningful changes and contributions in the regions, most importantly also to Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Wonderful. Thank you, Selma. We have a question here first. Okay, left. Oh, no, we don't do that. In gender equality, you know, it was first come, first served.
No, but that's okay.
Not in my events.
Okay.
We are all equal here, so there is no need to give someone space. Please.
Thank you very much for all the stories. I really enjoyed all of them. in all of your stories, I felt that at some point there was a click. So meaning either a change in life, either a moment of decision, so there was always a click. And my question is, very humble question, how do you know that you are in the right side of that click? And that's for all four, so.
Okay, in the right side of the click. Who understood the click, Edita? Please.
Things has to be done by love. When you do it by love, then you know where is click. Very easy.
Thank you, Edita. I just can really agree with that. Let your heart guide you, and my heart guides me and tells me that I am at the right place.
And also, in every time or every period of your life, you have a different click. So you know better than you. No one's know what is the click and what you should do in a right time.
Very simple. Every time a young queer person tells me thank you for what you're doing, each time it clicks for me, and I know I'm on the right side.
So do you click something in all four? Let's go to Linda and then Ksenia.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank. Okay. First of all, I want to thank you, each and every one of you, for sharing your journey and actually for all your work. And I could answer that it clicked for sure, because you inspired us. This morning, I said that I am today a stronger woman, stronger activist, a better leader and better human because of you, because of a women's movement in Kosovo, and also because of you, Edita, and Flora, and all other women out there that, let's say, inspired and motivated us to do our work and to make Kosovo and that society better society for all. And thank you again for that. I wanted also to ask you, because as you were the main negotiator in talks, official process, Kosovo-Serbia, and can you share something which was untold before? We've seen the documentary and something. Can you, or maybe some even funny moments or tough, and how you managed to do that?
I did it.
As the question came from my fellow country, I will take the topic which fits to us, will please us. We were negotiating the IBM agreement, Integrated Border Management Agreement, because after independence of Kosovo, Serbia burned the crossing borders in Jarinje and Brnjak in the northern parts of the border. And we came to the point that in the border should be Kosovo flag. As usual, like Kosovo authorities, Serbian side said, no, we don't recognize your symbol. You know what I said to Borko Stefanovic? If we have flag with Albania, I will put two flags. Because as you know, we have been part of Albania and we are same nation. So we put flag with our same nation, with Serbia, which is not Albania. I said, two flags. This was, and compromise came. It was accepted, of course, not two flags, but it passed, just as to tell you how I did.
So one flag was enough after you saying that.
If we put it to our Albania, then of course. Two flags.
Okay, thank you, Edita, and we have time for one question.
Yes, thank you.
More Valdeta in Pristina.
Thank you all for your stories. It was very inspirational. A lot of your stories actually touched me. And as someone born early in the 90s, it's really nice to hear stories from the real people who were there. And now we're talking about future. And my question is to Ms. Tahiri,
How do you see reconciliation now in the region? Where are we at and what is to be done?
Well, thank you. Thank you. When we went to brainstorming yesterday, we had a lunch together. Ognen, Selma, Belma, where is? You should be here. Rudina. And we were discussing, and I said, look, I said to Ognen, I'm a politician, so I cannot even not respect these 10 minutes. So if you keep asking politics, I'm here because I'm a politician. So let me answer. Well, to have lasting peace between Kosovo and Serbia, including the region, can come only by de jure mutual recognition. Why I say that? Because in the former Yugoslavia, there were 8 federal parts. Kosovo was one, Serbia was another, 7 federal parts. And they were equal constitutionally based on the constitution of ex-Yugoslavia of 1974. So departure of Kosovo towards independence, or Slovenia, or Croatia, Macedonia, Montenegro, Serbia now itself, Bosnia, all these were federal parts which had legal ground for independence. But Serbia, especially Vucic, has worked to change the narrative. So the world to forget that Kosovo was not part of Serbia, it was part of Yugoslavia. So now he presents as Kosovo is getting out from Serbia, separating. It's not true. We got separated from ex-Yugoslavia, not only us, it was Bosnia, it was Montenegro and others here. So this is the issue that because things have delayed, Vucic thinks that he can change the narrative and convince the world otherwise. Thank you. Okay. No more. Tomorrow press conference of our team, okay?
There is more, but during the break. But let's have an agreement now, not the jure, but just verbal agreement, because the time is quite unfitting for any of us. Probably you should tell them that we will be a little bit late for dinner. Would you like us to have a break of only 10 minutes? Very sharp, and believe me, when I say 10, I will come and shout at you. Yes, of course, without the mic. I'm very strict about that. So you have 10 minutes, and the time now, oh, Dr. Bolton, you wouldn't like that. At 7:41. Thank you.